On August 6, 2011, what began as a peaceful march escalated into a ruthless riot that lasted for several days. Thousands of people throughout England took to the streets to protest, but others used the protest as a way to inflict their own chaos. Businesses were looted, bystanders were killed, and property was destroyed. So what led to this violent riot? One fatal police shot during a planned arrest sparked this outrage. The police targeted 29-year-old Mark Duggan for a vehicle stop procedure. As he got out of the vehicle, an officer shot him twice. The officer claimed that he saw a gun in Mark's hand and feared for his life. However, evidence at the scene shows something else. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the London Riots of 2011. We'll cover what led up to the shooting of Mark Duggan in Tottenham and explore the chain of events that followed. Before we get into the eruption of violence, let's take a look at the background events leading to tension in the London communities where these riots broke out. There were some socio-economic factors that formed the path of the events that occurred in August of 2011. Mark Duggan lived in an area where there were high levels of poverty and unemployment. The limited opportunities that members of the black community in Tottenham had to improve their situation frustrated them. This hopeless feeling and lack of prospects are some of the main reasons why people in the area turned to crime. In 1998, Operation Trident began. This was a unit focused on black-on-black gun violence. They were responsible for investigating non-fatal shootings for the Metropolitan Police until 2013. This unit was keeping an eye on Mark Duggan the night of his shooting. This was all because he had a meeting with a man who they suspected was an illegal arms dealer. They also believed that Mark purchased a gun from him. Mark was a 29-year-old father. On the day of his shooting, he was the unit's target for investigation. Now, there is no solid proof, but there has been suspicion that he had gang ties and was a member of the Tottenham Man Dem. They were known for inflicting violence on other gangs throughout London. He was being investigated because it was believed that he shot one person in a nightclub and another in the club's parking lot. The Tottenham Man Dem gang is known to be one of the most violent in London. They were involved in drug dealing and have been responsible for many shootings in the area. The gang's origins are believed to be traced back to the 1970s. They officially became established in 1985 after the Broadwater Farm riot. Throughout the 1990s, they became one of the largest gangs in London. A former gang leader, Mark Lambie, helped the gang establish ties outside the London area to further their networking and operations. But along with these connections came plenty of rivals. One of the gang's most treacherous conflicts was with a rival gang, the Hackney Boys. Now, there is plenty of speculation about how this feud started. Some believe it started when members of Man Dem robbed members of the Hackney Boys. Others believe the 1997 killing of 16-year-old Gideon Stakers in Hackney sparked everything. While the origins are unclear, one thing is certain. This conflict resulted in many gang killings over the next few years and also set the grounds for Operation Trident to begin. On August 4, 2011, Mark Duggan was traveling in a minicab. He made a phone call to his brother Marlon to let him know he was on his way to the Broadwater Farm estate. Undercover agents were following him as he made that phone call. They had the insight to believe that he had collected a gun from Kevin Hutchinson Foster, who was known to store guns for gangsters. Mark must have known that he was being followed, as he had just enough time to fire off a text message that read, "Trident has jammed me." The officers forced the minicab to pull over. At 18:15 BST, one of the officers shot Mark twice as he was getting out of the car, and he passed away immediately. The first shot fired went through his arm and hit an officer's radio. The second shot fatally hit Mark Duggan in the chest. However, here is where things take a strange turn. The officers reported that Mark Duggan was hit after shots were exchanged. The gun he was suspected of having when pulled over was found roughly 7 meters away from his body, but this gun had not been shot. The minicab driver claimed that the armed officers who approached the vehicle were very callous. Allegedly, one threatened to shoot him if he didn't look around. Other witnesses to the event claim that Mark only got a few feet away from the vehicle before the shooting started and that officers had him pinned down. It wasn't until the following day, on August 5, 2011, that Mark Duggan's immediate family was called to identify his body. The police didn't formally inform the family of his death. Once they identified his body, the news started to spread among those who knew him. People were outraged and they wanted answers. On August 6, 2011, a group of nearly 300 people gathered outside the Tottenham police station. Their intentions were to have a peaceful protest. They had marched from the Broadwater Estate Farm to the police station in hopes of getting the officers to speak about the situation. But after roughly 5 hours of waiting, there were no available officers to address them. This added more fuel to the public's rage. Some members of the crowd became agitated. If the police weren't going to speak to them peacefully, they were going to find another way to get answers. The protesters were not going anywhere. The number of people continued to grow. Now, the exact moment that the protest turned from peaceful to violent is unknown. However, some witnesses have claimed that it began with an altercation between a teenager and an officer. Things only began to escalate from there. People began throwing bottles at patrol cars, lighting objects on fire and causing chaos. Police and riot officers were called to the scene, but things were getting far too out of control for their manpower. The people who initially set out to protest weren't the instigators of this riot. As the group of people made noise, more started to join the crowd. There was a lot of anger in the air, and people who weren't initially there to support the Duggan family came to partake in the chaos. Buildings were set on fire, stores and businesses were looted, and fights were breaking out. It was as though the violence was attracting more and more people who wanted to take advantage of the situation. Over the next few nights, the riots went on, but they weren't just in Tottenham. These riots spread throughout cities in the UK. It was estimated that over 15,000 people participated and that there were well over £250 million in damages done to businesses across London. So how did the word of the protest spread so quickly? Social media helped the word spread. Many organizers took to social media to spread misinformation about Mark Duggan's death. Others used these apps as a way to organize looting and other disturbances. In 2011, a lot of people in England used a BlackBerry mobile phone, so BBM, BlackBerry Messenger, was a popular app for communication. Many of the riot organizers used BBM to share messages and set up times and places for these groups to meet. Next to BBM, Twitter was also used to reach more people. A lot of people preferred using Twitter because it was a fast and effective way for their message to reach more people. It's also believed that social media played a vital role in how big these riots grew. There were riots in Tottenham in 1985 that didn't grow nearly as rapidly. One of the main reasons is that people didn't have a tool to get their voices heard. Law enforcement faced many challenges as the riots grew. People were frustrated at the police for their treatment of civilians. Many of the rioters came from poor areas and neighborhoods where they faced discrimination from the police. These people weren't just angry about the killing of Mark Duggan, they were also concerned that it could be them or a loved one next. The police needed to act right away to put an end to the riots, but there was one major problem. This was one time when the police were outpowered. As the riots grew rapidly, one thing became clear. Many of the participants were on the streets looking for looting opportunities. People would throw bricks at shop windows and then go in crowds to loot the goods inside. They overpowered the store owners and any security they had on staff. Clothing stores and electronics stores were the first places to get looted. People were running down the streets with plasma TVs, bags, and trolleys filled with goods. People of all ages were participating in the chaos. Of course, people probably expected to see lots of youth on the streets looting and vandalizing. However, there were also senior citizens who were getting involved in the action. One witness speaking with the BBC gave an account of when they saw people in their 70s walking into a sports store and filling their bags on wheels with items. One convenience store owner in Hackney reported over £50,000 stolen in alcohol and cigarettes alone. This doesn't even include the damage that was done to his store or other items that were taken during the looting. A lot of people came to these riots just to witness the events, but found themselves getting caught up in the looting and other disturbances. Arson was becoming widespread. People were lighting garbage bins and other items on fire. Some would even throw ignited items at police officers and patrol cars on the scene. Flames were set on stores, businesses, and other buildings. There was even a double-decker bus set on fire. The violence also grew out of control. Witnesses saw people staggering around the streets, cut, bloody, and broken. Over 200 people were reported injured during these riots. 5 lives were lost. 26-year-old Trevor Ellis was shot to death in Croydon, South London, when he was in the area with friends. 3 brothers, Harun Jahan, Shahzad Ali, and Abdul Musavir, were killed in a hit-and-run incident while attempting to protect their neighborhood from the ongoing violence. 68-year-old Richard Mannington Bowes was killed during an attack when he attempted to put out a bin fire. Extra forces are sent in to help the police, but at this point, it's not enough. On August 9, 2011, a police station in Handsworth, Birmingham was set on fire. Another one was firebombed in Nottingham. The looting, arson, and riots are spreading beyond London. There was a tremendous amount of pressure for a political response. Keir Starmer led the Crown Prosecution Service at the time. He made some policies that went into effect immediately and that would ensure rioters were punished with the maximum sentences. This policy meant that minors could be tried for minor offenses and that their identities wouldn't remain anonymous to the media. He also ordered the courts to stay open 24/7 for emergency sessions. The justice system also puts a higher amount of pressure on the police and courts to take stronger initiative. There were over 3,000 people that could be arrested for the riots. First, they needed to ensure there was enough room in the prisons to keep all of these people for the maximum amount of time. By August 10, 2011, the Ministry of Justice declared that there was enough space. With that came the announcement that there was a contingency plan to use a water cannon within 24 hours. While the riots began to settle down, witnesses claimed there was another reason it was over. The stores were empty. There was nothing left to steal. A lot of people joined the riots out of greed. They weren't there to join the movement or protest against the police. 1 year after the event started, on August 6, 2012, over 1,800 years' worth of prison sentences were given out to organizers and key players in the riots. Since people used social media to organize the mayhem, there was a record for investigators to follow. On top of that, there was plenty of video footage of widespread violence. Security footage from shops and businesses only caught so much. The footage witnesses caught on their smartphones showed a lot more. Clear videos of people walking out of shops with stolen merchandise, setting public property on fire, and other dangerous acts were enough evidence. Out of all the people brought to trial, one that caught the most media attention was Kevin Hutchinson Foster, the man who gave Mark Duggan the gun merely 15 minutes before his death. His first trial started on September 18, 2012, and lasted until October 17, 2012. The court was unable to reach a verdict at this time, but Kevin wasn't off the hook yet. He was brought back to court for a retrial and found guilty on February 26, 2013, and was sentenced to 11 years in prison. The London riots left a harsh mark on British society. It was an eye-opener to the dire need for systemic change. Those who were there to protest wanted to get a message across about the deep-rooted social inequalities in London. One good thing to come out of the riots was that there were more conversations about these issues and police practices. However, many people came out to the riots purely for greed. The shops that were looted and vandalized had no association with the police. The chaos that spread shattered the trust within the community. So, what's to say another riot like this won't happen again in the future? The dialogue surrounding the cause of the riots was crucial for preventing this from happening again. Voicing concerns and finding solutions for better education and employment opportunities is an important way to address social inequalities. This wraps up our video on the London riots of 2011. Civilians in the Tottenham area were outraged when news broke about police shooting Mark Duggan. They were frustrated and angry with the way police were treating people from black communities. While the people who were upset about this incident showed up on August 6, 2011 to engage in a peaceful protest, they had no idea what was about to happen. Things escalated and there was widespread violence that occurred for several days, spanning beyond London. Damage was done, businesses were looted, and lives were lost. Do you believe social inequalities have been adequately addressed since the London riots? Let us know your opinions in the comments below. Thank you for staying tuned to the end. Make sure you hit like, share, and subscribe to see more Mafia Mystique content.